Absolutely. Let me explain this full story again, but in even greater detail, in the simplest and clearest way, line by line, like I'm teaching a young child who is learning everything for the first time. Let's start from the beginning. 1. Who was Vallabha Vinayaditya? Vallabha Vinayaditya was a king. He ruled in South India. He belonged to the Chalukya dynasty, a big royal family in history. He had big plans in his mind, like winning wars, gaining more land, and becoming more powerful. Imagine this. He was like a chess player planning many moves ahead to win the game of kings and kingdoms. 2. What did he do with the Kalachuri in-laws? He made family ties with another royal family, the Kalachuris, by marriage. That means people from his family married people from the Kalachuri family. These marriages helped him make strong bonds, not just love, but political friendship. He asked his new in-laws, relatives by marriage, to help him with soldiers. Think of it like this. He made a team by joining his family and the Kalachuris, so he had more power. 3. Who was Vijayaditya? Vijayaditya was Vinayaditya's son. He was the crown prince, the prince who would become king next. He was also the father of Vikramaditya, who later becomes important. Vikramaditya married 2 princesses from the Kalachuri family. So this made the families even more closely connected. Imagine a big royal family tree where sons marry daughters from powerful kingdoms to stay strong together. 4. What did Vijayaditya do? Around the year 690 AD, his father sent him north to attack and take control of land. This is called a raid, a quick military attack. The target, North India. 5. What was happening in North India at that time? A great king named Harsha had died. Harsha was a very strong and respected ruler. After his death, there was no strong leader left. North India became messy. Kings were fighting each other. Kingdoms from Kashmir, Tibet and Nepal were attacking and trying to take over land. Imagine a playground where the teacher left, and now all the kids are pushing each other to grab the swing. That's what North India was like. Total confusion. 6. Who was Siladitya III? He was a king from Gujarat in West India. He was very powerful. He was trying to take over the Gangetic Plains, the area around the Ganga River. This land was rich, holy, and full of people. Controlling it meant great power. He was so confident that he started calling himself an emperor even before fully winning the land. What symbols did Siladitya use? He made flags or images that showed the Ganga and Yamuna rivers. These rivers are very holy and important in India. By showing them, he was saying, look, I am the king of the Ganga and Yamuna area. I rule the heart of India. But this was a bit too early. He hadn't fully won the land yet. 8. What happened next? Vijayaditya fought Siladitya and defeated him. Vijayaditya's army won the battle. They captured those symbols, the ones showing the Ganga and Yamuna. They took them to the south, to the Deccan, where the Chalukyas ruled. This was like saying, we beat you. You're not the ruler of this land anymore. We are. 9. Why is this important? This story shows how clever and powerful the Chalukya kings were. They didn't just fight with swords. They used family ties, military strength, and smart politics. They even took symbols of power from others to prove their victory. Super easy final summary. King Vinayaditya wanted to become very powerful. He married into another royal family, Kalachuris, and got help from them. He sent his son Vijayaditya to fight in North India. North India was in chaos after a great king, Harsha, died. A king from Gujarat, Siladitya, tried to rule the Ganga region and started acting like an emperor. But Vijayaditya defeated him, took away his powerful river symbols and brought them back to the south. This showed that the Chalukyas were now the real winners and had gained power over a very important part of India. Would you like a timeline, map, or even a story version like a bedtime tale to make this more fun and clear? I can do that too. Sure, here's a great detailed summary of the full passage. explained in the simplest words so anyone can understand, even if they have no history knowledge at all. Summary, in the simplest and most detailed way. A king named Vallabha Vinayaditya from southern India, Deccan region, had big plans. He got help from a powerful family in central India called the Chalukya, who had married into his family. He sent his son, Vijayaditya, to attack North India in the 690s AD. At that time, North India was in total confusion. The great northern emperor Harsha had died, and many new powers from places like Kashmir, Tibet, and Nepal were fighting to take over. It was like a big open playground for war. Vijayaditya fought against a strong king named Chalukya III from Gujarat, who was trying to control the important Ganga-Yamuna region, a very famous part of North India. Sin started using royal symbols that showed he ruled this land. But Vijayaditya defeated him and took away those powerful symbols, then brought them to the south. This showed that the southern king had won. This was a very big deal. Why? Because it was the first time in 500 years, or maybe even ever, that a king from South India had crossed the Vindhya Mountains, the natural border between, and won a war. This event shocked everyone in India. It was like when 1,000 years later, the Marathas from Maharashtra stood up to the mighty Mughal Emperor Aurangzeb. Nobody believed it could happen, but it did. That Chalukya victory was not just a one-time event. It was the beginning of a new trend. For the next several centuries, kings from the Deccan, southern India, would often go north, fight wars, and even rule parts of the north. So this moment in history showed the start of Deccan southern power rising, and their kings would become important players across all of India, not just in the south. Key points. Super easy to remember. Vallabha Vinayaditya sent his son to attack North India in the 690s. North India was weak and broken after Harsha's death. Vijayaditya defeated the powerful king Chalukya III of Gujarat. He took the Ganga-Yamuna symbols back to the south. It was the first time in 500 years that a southern king won in the north. This surprised people across India. It was a huge deal. It started a long tradition of southern Indian kings ruling or invading North India many centuries before the Marathas did it. Let me know if you'd like a timeline, map, or story version with characters to make it even more fun and memorable. Here is a great deal of the passage, explained clearly and thoroughly in simple and easy to understand language. Summary: the rise of the Chalukyas and the shift of power to the Deccan. In ancient times, North India was the center of everything important. The great Mahabharata and Ramayana happened there. The first powerful kingdoms rose in the north. The most sacred pilgrimage places, called tirthas, were also in the north. So, for a long time, North India was seen as the heart of Indian culture, religion, and power. But then came a big change. A powerful dynasty called the Chalukyas, who ruled in south-central India, the Deccan Plateau, began to challenge this old idea. The Chalukyas seemed to say, "We are the new leaders now. We are building a world of our own. We are no less than the great kings of the north." They started to build their own sacred temples and pilgrimage sites, set up royal courts with their own laws and traditions, create temples that were just as grand as the northern ones. The Deccan region, which was earlier not the centre, began to grow rapidly in importance and influence. It became a new hub of religion, politics, and culture. The Chalukyas even began to use symbols from the north, like statues of the goddesses Ganga and Yamuna, who represented the sacred rivers of North India. These statues were usually found only in northern temples, but the Chalukyas placed them at the gates of their own temples, showing, "We too are rulers of a sacred land. We too deserve respect and devotion." As many kingdoms grew in the Deccan, they began to compete and innovate. Monasteries, places of learning and religion, grew larger. Pilgrimage spots in the south became crowded with visitors. Temples, ideas, and powers emerged. The Deccan was now becoming the new center of gravity for the Absolutely. Here's a great detailed summary of the entire passage you provided, written in the clearest, simplest language and covering every important point. Detailed summary. After defeating all their rivals in the Deccan, central southern India, the Chalukyas became the most powerful kingdom in the region for nearly 2 generations, about 50 to 60 years. With no one left to challenge them, they received tribute, taxes, gifts, or money from smaller kingdoms and also earned income from agriculture across their empire. All this wealth flowed into the Malaprabha Valley, which was the homeland of the Chalukyas, their center of power. But there was a problem. The soil in this valley wasn't very fertile. It wasn't great for growing crops like wheat or rice. Instead, it was mainly used for growing millet, a grain that grows well in dry or poor soil. To get other food and goods, they brought them from other Chalukya lands or got them through trade routes, roads used for business with other places. To protect this valley, the Chalukyas built a strong fortress at Vatapi, now called Badami. This fort was built on high hills, and it gave them a clear view for kilometers around, helping them watch for danger and guard the valley. Inside the Malaprabha Valley were some very old and important towns, such as Aryapura Ayavol, Kisuvolo, now Patadakal. These places had already been holy sites for hundreds of years because they were close to rivers and springs, which are considered sacred in Indian culture. Now, under the Chalukyas, these towns became even more important. The Chalukyas built many beautiful temples there, dedicated to Puranic gods, such as Shiva, Vishnu, and other Hindu deities described in the Puranas, ancient Hindu religious texts. Because of the Chalukya military power and the rich royal court, new people started coming to this area, including artists, builders, traders, monks, and farmers. New money and ideas flowed into the region. All of this brought about big changes. The valley became richer, more crowded, more artistic, and more culturally advanced. This sets the stage for the rise of another very important part of India's medieval life, the merchant guilds, which were groups of traders and businessmen who worked together to control trade, build wealth, and support temple building and culture. Key points in short. 1. Chalukyas became super powerful in the Deccan. No one could defeat them. 2. Wealth from taxes and farming came into their homeland, the Malaprabha Valley. Number 3. Soil in the valley was poor, only good for millet. Other goods came from trade in other regions. 4. Vatapi Fort protected the valley and gave a wide view to spot threats. 5. Towns like Aihole and Patadakal, already sacred for centuries. 6. Chalukyas built temples dedicated to Hindu gods from the Purana. 7. Many people, money, and ideas flowed in, turning the valley into a rich and cultural hub. 8. This led to the rise of merchant guilds, powerful trader groups that helped shape the economy and society. Let me know if you'd like a visual timeline, map, chart, or comic-style summary to help remember it even better. Here's a great detailed summary of the passage you provided, written in very simple and clear language with all the key ideas explained step by step. Summary: 500 lords, Ainuravar, a powerful merchant India. 1. Who were they? The 500 lords were a powerful group of about 500 upper caste men, mainly Brahmins, the priestly and landowning class. They lived in Aihole, a town in the Malaprabha River Valley, during the 7th to 8th centuries CE, around 1300 years ago. They were not ordinary people. They were Chaturvedi Brahmins, meaning they were highly educated and had studied all 4 Vedas, the sacred Hindu books. They also had strong connection to the royal court, the rulers of the region. 2. What did they do? Even though they were not from traditional business castes like the Seti merchants, they saw a golden opportunity. The towns and cities in the Malaprabha Valley were growing. There was a rising demand for food, goods, and luxury items. These Brahmins used their money, power, education, and royal contacts to take over business and trade. How did they do it? They formed a powerful merchant guild, a group that controls trade and business. At first it was a real group of 500 people, but later 500 lords just became the name of the guild, even if the number changed. They brought local traders and travelling merchants under their control. Monopoly rights, exclusive rights to trade in specific items, and brokerage middlemen who made deals to certain trusted traders. After 4, where did they expand? As the guild grew stronger, it spread from Aihole to a larger region, especially between the Krishna and Tungabhadra rivers, a fertile and rich trade zone. They created smaller branches of the guild in different areas, which worked like local offices or franchises. Some of these branches covered as many as 4 modern districts. 5. Why was this important? This was a big change in how trade and business worked in South India. Earlier, trade was scattered and less organised. The 500 lords created a system of rules and control, bringing order and structure to trade. They worked under the protection of the Chalukya kings, which helped them stay powerful. Their guild united many smaller, powerful groups of traders under one umbrella. Final point. This story shows how religious, educated and powerful Brahmins became economic leaders during a time of urban growth and rising demand. They didn't just pray or teach, they saw opportunities, organised trade and helped build one of the first big merchant networks in South Indian history. If you want, I can also break this into Q&A format, make a visual chart or write a short comic style version. Just say the word. Sure, here is a great detailed summary of the passage, written in the simplest and clearest way with all the important points explained step by step. Detailed summary of the passage in simple English. 1. Background. This passage talks about the Deccan region in South India, especially a place called the Malaprabha River Valley. During ancient times, this area was ruled by the Chalukya dynasty. 2. Who were the 500? The 500 were a group of very rich Brahmin merchants, traders, and others like them. They were very powerful and helped in changing and improving the Deccan region. They were like agents of development. 3. What was happening at the same time? While these merchants were active, another important change was happening. Many rich people close to the king started building lots of temples. 4. Not just kings, rich people too. Usually we say kings helped grow religion in India by building temples. But this passage says we should also give credit to rich people who worked with the king, like ministers, merchants, poets, priests, and army generals. These rich people also spent a lot of money to build temples. 5. New temple building activity. As these people became richer, they began a second wave of temple building in the Malaprabha River Valley. They built temples not just for one god, but for many popular gods. This happened around the 700 CE 8th century. 6. Skilled workers. These rich people hired professional temple builders, called sthapatis. These sthapatis came from different places in groups or guilds and designed beautiful temples. 7. Why did they build temples? It wasn't only because they were religious. They also wanted to show off their wealth, how rich they were, their intelligence and class sophistication, their connection to the king. 8. It was a competition. These rich people competed with each other, who could donate more, who could build a bigger, better temple. The more money or land you gave to the temple, the higher your status, rank in society. 9. Stone writings and fame. Temples had inscriptions, stone carvings that praised the king and listed how much each person donated. These were read aloud to people or seen by visitors. So everyone knew who the biggest, most generous donors were. In simple words, rich people in South India, not just kings, helped change the region by building temples. They didn't just do it for religion. They did it to show off how rich and powerful they were. The more they donated, the more respect they got. Their names and donations were written on stone so that everyone could know how important they were. Let me know if you'd like this in bullet points, story form, or a diagram mind map. Absolutely. Here's a great detailed summary of the full passage in the simplest and clearest way possible, like telling a beautiful, easy to follow story. Let's go step by step, combining everything into one smooth summary. Detailed summary in the simplest words. Around the year 710 CE, a young Vikramaditya Chalukya was chosen as the Yuvaraja, which means crown prince, the person who would become the next king. He was married to two sisters who belonged to a powerful royal family called the Kalachuris. This marriage made their political alliance even stronger. At that time, the Chalukya dynasty, which ruled a large part of South India, had become very powerful and respected. The Chalukya kings before Vikramaditya had done a lot to build up their kingdom. His father, King Vijayaditya, had fought many wars and kept the kingdom strong. His grandfather, King Vinayaditya, had expanded their rule. His great-grandfather, also named Vikramaditya, Vikramaditya I, was a famous and powerful ruler too. Because of their work, the Chalukya dynasty controlled most of the Deccan region, central South India. Other kings in the area had to follow their rules or accept their power. Even their old enemies, the Pallavas, had stopped fighting with them for now. So this was a time of peace and power for the Chalukyas. In the Malaprabha River Valley, the heart of their kingdom, things were finally calm and peaceful after years of war and destruction. People who had once lived in fear could now rebuild their homes and lives. Crops grew again, cities began to expand, and new temples were being built, showing that art, religion, and culture were also coming back to life. King Vijayaditya, the father of Vikramaditya, had spent most of his life in wars and battles. But now, in his older years, he returned home to rest. He fell in love with a young courtesan, a woman who was an entertainer, dancer, or companion in royal courts. He spent his last years in peace, enjoying love and calmness instead of war and worry. During this peaceful time, new temples were rising into the sky. Cities and towns were growing and becoming busier. The king and his family would go on tours across the kingdom, visiting relatives, sons-in-law and married daughters who lived in faraway places. It was a happy time, a time when life felt easier and richer for the royal family and for many people in the kingdom. After many years of war, burning and fear, there was now growth, family joy, love, art and peace. What makes this time special? The Chalukyas were at their highest power. No wars were happening. The land and people were healing. The old king had found peace and love in his final years. Temples, cities and families were growing strong. Let me know if you'd like a story map-like diagram to go with this, a short quiz flashcards, a comparison with other dynasties like Pallavas or Kalachuris, or a simplified version for even younger learners. Sure. Here's a great detailed summary of the passage in the simplest, clearest way, covering all main points and hidden ideas. Detailed summary. The Chalukya Empire might have looked strong and peaceful on the outside, but inside there was tension, competition, and struggles for power. Even though the king was the main ruler, he was not the only powerful figure. Outside the royal court, places like temples and wealthy merchants also had influence. Inside the court, it was like a viper pit, full of people secretly fighting, plotting, and competing to gain more power. It was a place of politics, jealousy, and danger. As the Chalukya Empire grew larger, its economic networks, trade, wealth, and religious centers, temples, priests, also grew. This led to new groups of people becoming powerful, such as merchants, businessmen, ascetics, holy men who gave up worldly life, landlords, rich landowners, aristocrats, noble families. These groups began to challenge the king's dominance. They didn't fight with weapons, but they competed in other ways, like donating more to temples, supporting artists, gaining wealth, and making deals. Because of this growing competition, the royal family felt threatened. To show they were still number one, they began doing huge public displays of power, like building grand temples, spending a lot of money, making big religious statements. One major example was the Lokapaleshvara temple, now called Galaganatha, at Pattadakal. It was built in the North Indian style, not the usual South Indian style, a deliberate choice to show off the Chalukya king's victory in northern India. The temple's god was Lord of the Directions. The Chalukya wanted to claim they ruled in all four directions, north, south, east, west. This temple was so big and grand that it made Pattadakal the new religious capital of the Chalukya dynasty. But here's the twist. This temple wasn't just about worship or art. It was built to hide the fear and insecurity of the royal family. They were scared of losing, so they were huge and strong-looking to give the impression of control and confidence, even when they were not truly in control. Core message: the Chalukyas were under pressure from rising new powers. To protect their image, they built lavish temples that acted like masks, covering up their weakness, fear, and loss of control. What looked like a symbol of power was actually a sign of political stress and insecurity. Would you like a very short version, one paragraph summary too? Sure. Here's a great detailed summary of the passage. Very simple words with everything clearly explained. Summary in the simplest and clearest way. The Chalukya Empire had a very big and complex system to manage all the people and lands under its control. It wasn't just the king and his soldiers. There were many layers of power. At one level, there were the Samantas, local king chiefs who ruled small areas but followed the Chalukya emperor. But the Samantas were not the only ones. There were many other rulers, big and small, in this system. These included village heads in charge of a few villages, district lords in charge of bigger areas, and governors of provinces in charge of very large areas like today's states. All of them were connected to the king. Some were close to him, others less connected, but they all had to listen to him in some way. But it wasn't just rulers who had power. There were other important people who didn't rule land, but still had a lot of influence. These included merchants who traded goods, bankers who handled money, monks, religious leaders, courtesans, educated women who had influence in the court. These people had wealth, fame, and connections, which gave them power to affect politics. To keep all these different people under control and working together, the Chalukya emperor had to be very active and smart. He couldn't relax. He had to always be watching, planning, and managing things. He had to give titles like king, lord, minister, offer honors like praise or rewards, arrange marriages between powerful families, make appointments, give jobs to people, give gifts like land or money, and get loyalty from others. People had to show respect and obey him. He also had to make sure agreements were followed, solve any problems, and use good opportunities when they came. The emperor's court, his team of ministers and helpers, was also very important. It was made up of smart, talented, and ambitious people, many of whom were related to the Chalukya family. They helped run the empire with him. One famous family in the court was the Pallavas. They worked for Vikramaditya Aha and other kings after him. They had a special job called Mahasandhi Vigrahaka, which means great controller of peace and war. This is like today's foreign minister, someone who makes deals with other countries and helps with war and peace decisions. The Pallavas followed the king wherever he went, even when he moved around in his military camp. They helped him by writing official documents like land grants when the king gave land to someone. Just like the Harishchandra family was very powerful among local rulers, the Pallavas were very powerful among the court ministers. Many other rich and strong families from the Chalukya heartland also competed to get important court jobs like them. In short, the Chalukya Empire was not ruled by just one king. It was a huge network of rulers, rich people, monks, and officials. The emperor had to do a lot of work and planning to keep everyone loyal and working together. He gave out rewards, jobs, and titles, solved problems, and made important deals. His court was full of talented people, including families like the Pallavas, who were trusted to write laws and help with foreign matters. Let me know if you'd like this in chart form or a short quiz for revision. Here is a great summary in the cinch, perfect for full understanding. Summary. Life and power of women in royal palaces, Antapuram in medieval India. In medieval India, royal women who lived inside the king's palace, called the Antapuram, were very powerful and influential. These palaces were private, inner parts of the royal buildings, where only women and some close male attendants could go. The women living there included the king's queens, wives, daughters of important ministers, generals and priests. They had their own hierarchy, order of ranks, just like in the king's court. 1 hour, but only if they were. Not all queens were equal. Becoming the most important queen, called the chief queen, was not just about being the first wife. It depended on talent, public opinion, and secret deals. The wives and daughters of other powerful men also had ranks and duties. These women had to take part in royal family rituals and ceremonies. They also served the top queens, like assistants or helpers. 2. The king controlled women's personal lives closely. The king had many women in the palace, and female attendants had to keep track of each woman's fertile time when she could become pregnant, her sexual king. The goal was to make sure the next king came from the right woman. A queen was still seen as part of the king's possessions. Even with some power, a queen was still thought of as belonging to the king, not as an independent person. Only the most special women, with good family backgrounds, strong connections, or great qualities, could hope to become the mother of the next king or queen. 4. Many women were not in the palace by choice. Some queens or princesses were captured in war and forced to live in a new king's palace. These women were usually treated badly by both the king and the other queens. 5. Violence and sex in the palace life. Violent sex, whether forced or not, was sadly not uncommon. The Kama Sutra, a famous ancient Indian book about love and relationships, was meant for rich, powerful men. It even described how men are naturally rough and strong, how women are seen as weak, soft and powerless. It even gave stories where kings accidentally killed women, like dancers or wives, during rough sex. While the book said such actions were wrong and shameful, the fact that these things were written in a respected book shows such violence really happened in elite royal life. Conclusion. Women in the royal palaces had the chance to gain power, influence, and respect, but only if they had special skills, strong family ties, or luck. Still, even the most powerful queen had limited freedom. She was still under the king's control. Many women were brought into the palace against their will, and violence was sadly a part of their lives. This shows that life inside the palace could be both glamorous and cruel at the same time. Let me know if you'd like a super short version too. Here's a great detailed summary of the passage, clearly and fully, covering all the key ideas. Summary. The passage focuses on the complex power dynamics within the royal family of the Chalukyas, especially during the 8th century CE, and highlights how royal women gained influence during this time. Around the year 720 CE, Prince Vikramaditya Chalukya was declared Yuvaraja, crown prince, which meant he was selected to become the next king. This decision came years after his princesses from the Kalachuri royal family. The delay in his appointment suggests that he was one of many sons born to King Vijayaditya, also known as Vallabha, by different queens. Each queen likely supported her own son to become the next king, leading to political competition and lobbying within the royal household. To secure Vikramaditya's place as heir, he and his 2 sister wives, who were both daughters of the Kalachuri king, had to manage both their personal relationship with each other and their political relationships with other powerful groups and families in the Malaprabha Valley. These included influential nobles, generals, religious leaders, and courtiers, all of whom had a role in royal decision-making. Once Vikramaditya was declared Yuvaraj, the status of 2 wives rose significantly. They now had higher status than the wives of other princes and were second only to the wives of the current king, their mother-in-law and co-queens. This elevated position gave them more authority and social power within the palace and the court. Before royal women in the Deccan, apart from a powerful queen named Vijaya Mahadevi, generally played limited roles in major public or religious activities. If they supported building temples or religious projects, it was usually with money or permission from male relatives. However, after their rise in status, Vikramaditya's 2 Kalachuri queens began to play active, independent roles in such areas. They no longer waited for male approval or support. They had power and used it. Main themes and insights. Royal succession was not straightforward. It involved political strategy, support from different court factions, and influence from royal women. Women in royal families, especially those married to powerful or rising princes, could gain great influence, especially if they successfully helped their husbands gain political power. The 2 Kalachuri princesses, through their marriage and political skill, helped Vikramaditya become heir and became key figures in court politics. The role of royal women changed at this point from being mostly passive to becoming actors of temples, religious institutions and public works. This moment marked visibility and authority of royal women in Deccan politics and culture. Would you like this also turned into a bullet point version for quick recall? A great detailed summary of the passage you shared in clearest way so you understand everything deeply. Summary of the story of Chalukya Mahadevi in the Grand Shiva Temple at Patadakal. 1. Who was Chalukya Mahadevi? Chalukya Mahadevi was a royal princess from the Kalachuri dynasty. She married Prince Vikramaditya Chalukya, a powerful prince of the Chalukya Empire. Interestingly, her elder sister, Loka Mahadevi, also married the same prince, so both sisters lived in the same royal household. To her powerful position, in the early 720s, Chalukya Mahadevi gave birth to a son who was chosen to be the heir, the next in line to become king after his father. This birth increased her importance a lot in the royal court. She was now the mother of the future king. 3. The Grand Temple Project. After her son's birth, Chalukya Mahadevi started a massive religious project. She ordered the building of a huge temple for Lord Shiva at Patadakal, a very important place for the Chalukya rulers. The temple wasn't just big, it was so ambitious and difficult that it needed the best artisans and workers from all across the Malaprabha Valley. The project was so large that it stopped many other building projects in the region. These artisans worked on her temple for 14 years. Number 4. Why Patadakal was important. Patadakal was where Chalukya kings were crowned. It was also becoming a major religious center due to earlier temples built by King Vijayaditya, Chalukya's father-in-law. By building a temple here, Chalukya Mahadevi was showing her power and religious devotion. She also likely had the support of the king, meaning she had become very influential in the kingdom. Number 5. Her sudden death. Sadly, Chalukya Mahadevi died suddenly while her son was still a teenager. The temple she dreamed of was not finished. After her death, the workers and resources were to help finish other temple projects started by her father-in-law. But King Vijayaditya was said to be deeply moved by her vision, even though she was gone. 6. Loka Mahadevi takes charge! After Chalukya's death, her elder sister, Loka Mahadevi, became the chief queen, the most powerful woman in the palace. She took care of her husband Vikramaditya, her sister's young son, the future king. She now had a strong position in the royal household and likely had influence over royal decisions. Number 7. A mystery that remains. The writer wonders what the relationship was like between Loka Mahadevi, the elder sister, the boy prince, her sister's son. Did she love and care for him like a mother, or did she mistreat him because he had power and might become king, reducing her own influence? We'll never know. History does not tell us what happened in their hearts or behind closed doors. Main themes in simple words. A powerful royal woman used temple building to show her status and devotion. The temple became a symbol of power, faith, and politics. Her early death changed everything. The project was taken over and her sister rose to power. It shows how royal women in ancient India also had influence, ambition, and agency, even though they are often forgotten in history. If you want this as a story format, bullet points, timeline, or even visuals, just let me know. Here's the greatest, most detailed summary of the passage about Loka Mahadevi, written in very simple, clear language, so anyone can understand and remember it easily. Detailed summary: the greatness of Queen Loka Mahadevi. Loka Mahadevi was one of the most powerful and exceptional queens in medieval Indian history. She was the wife of Prince Vikramaditya from the Chalukya dynasty, a royal family that ruled over parts of South India. Even though she was not the highest-ranking wife, her sister Chalukya Mahadevi held that status because she was the mother of the future king. Loka Mahadevi's actions showed great strength, boldness, and independence. She didn't just sit quietly in the palace. Instead, she managed 2 regions, like ruling over 2 districts, all by herself. Built a huge temple, which sadly doesn't exist today. Gave the income of many villages to support that temple. All this shows that she controlled land, money, and people, something very few royal women ever did, especially in public. Most queens back then would ask the king to give land on their behalf, but Loka Mahadevi gave land directly under her own name. This was a bold and saying, powerful in my own right. Full support. Her husband, the Crown Prince Vikramaditya, her father-in-law, the emperor, called Vallabha, the royal women's court, called the Antapuram. Her actions showed that she was not just a queen, she was seen as equal to a goddess. She acted like Lakshmi or Shakti, the female divine energy that gives strength to gods like Vishnu. And Vikramaditya was like Vishnu, the god king. She was like Lakshmi, the source of his power. Later inscriptions, records carved on stones or copper plates, even said that Vikramaditya gained great energy by being united with her. This shows how important she was, even in the eyes of her contemporaries. Usually, royal records called prashastis only praised kings, but in Loka Mahadevi's case, they praised her directly. That was extremely rare and shows that she was not just a queen behind the scenes, but central and powerful public figure in the Chalukya Empire.
Yeah.
Why she was so special? She ruled land as an independent authority. She had economic control, land revenue. She built religious structures, temple patronage. She had full royal support, unlike others. She was compared to goddesses, a huge honor. She was mentioned as the source of her husband's power those times. She was publicly acknowledged and respected, not hidden in the background. Conclusion: Loka Mahadevi was not just a wife of a prince. She was a ruler, temple builder, land giver, symbol of divine power, and a respected figure in her own right. Her life and actions broke the usual limits placed on royal women, and she stood out as a true powerhouse of the Chalukya dynasty, equal to the gods, admired by all. Let me know if you'd like a version in bullet points, story form, or a visual timeline. Sure, here's the greatest, most summary of the entire passage, perfect for deep understanding even if you're totally new to the topic. Summary of Vikramaditya's early rule and the Purigere inscription. 1. Introduction to Vikramaditya Thiku. Vikramaditya the Second was a prince and later a king from the powerful Chalukya dynasty in South India. His father was King Vijayaditya, also called Vallabha, who ruled for nearly 40 years of time back then. Last decade of Vijayaditya's reign, his son Vikramaditya and his daughter-in-law Loka Mahadevi began managing the kingdom as the king was growing old and weak. The Purigere, a special document. One of the most famous things Vikramaditya did in his early rule was to create a constitution or agreement in a town called Purigere, modern-day Lakshmeshwar, Karnataka. He made this agreement with important people of the town, different social groups, powerful merchant guilds, groups of traders and business people. Chapter 3. What the agreement said. The king's officers would enforce royal commands, orders, make sure land grants, lands given to people, were used correctly, but taxes and fines, like from theft or rule breaking, were not collected by the king's officers. Instead, this money was given directly to the merchant guild. Chapter 4. Why give taxes to merchants? The money was collected during Kartika month, October-November, when wars usually started in ancient India. This suggests that the merchant guilds helped the army by providing supplies, money, or logistics. In return, they were allowed to keep the tax money. This shows a smart partnership between the king and traders. 5. The rise of merchant guilds. One such powerful guild was called the 500, a group of 500 merchants. These guilds were so influential that sometimes they had more control than even royal officers in some towns. The royal court understood this and worked with them instead of fighting them. 6. Vikramaditya's strategy. While ruling during his father's old age, Vikramaditya and Lokamahadi focused on peaceful governance, political planning, building temples and encouraging culture, but they soon realized that just being good rulers wasn't enough. The Chalukya kings before them were all great warriors, and people expected the next king to also be strong in war. 7. Need for military glory. As Vijayaditya's health worsened, Vikramaditya had to show his strength, prove he was capable of protecting the kingdom, stop other claimants from trying to steal power. In the large Deccan region, many rulers and chiefs were watching for any weakness in the Chalukya kingdom. So Vikramaditya had to publicly show that he was a worthy and powerful leader, just like his ancestors.
Key points recap. Topic explanation. Porigere inscription.
An agreement made by Vikramaditya with local leaders and merchant groups. Would go to merchants, not royal officers. Why? Because merchants helped the king by supporting the army. Powerful trader groups like the 500 had major influence. Vikramaditya's strategy built peace, but also needed to show strength in war to protect his claim. Lokamahadevi. His queen helped him govern and rule during his father's illness.
Conclusion.
Vikramaditya II was a clever and capable young leader. He worked wisely with powerful merchant groups to strengthen his position, helped rule during his father's last years, and knew that to gain full power and respect, he would have to show both wisdom in peace and strength in war, just like the great kings before him. His early moves, especially the Porigere agreement, show his smart politics and understanding of how to use new power groups like merchant guilds to support the Chalukya Empire. Let me know if you'd like this in a short notes version or as Q&A flashcards. Sure, here's a great detailed summary of the passage you gave, explained in the simplest and clearest way possible. Detailed summary. Around the year 708 CE, a huge foreign empire called the Umayyad Caliphate, based in Syria, West Asia, began attacking India. These attacks were not just small raids, they were a part of a long military campaign. This campaign continued for over 2 decades until the 730s and caused serious damage to western and central parts of India. These areas were left shaken and scared. People, from ordinary citizens to kings, were uncertain, worried and anxious. In the Deccan region, central southern India, King Vikramaditya II and Queen Lokamahadevi were ruling. They were trying to make their rule stronger and prove their leadership, especially since Vikramaditya's father, Vallabha Vijayaditya, had ruled peacefully for a long time. But now, with threats growing, the royal couple felt they needed to prove themselves through action, especially military, as earlier Chalukya kings had done. One way they could do this was by calling upon their allies and vassals, smaller kings and loyal supporters, to unite and fight a common enemy, like the powerful Umayyads in the north. But Vikramaditya didn't feel strong or confident enough to fight the Umayyads directly. Maybe his army wasn't ready, or maybe he was worried about losing. So he chose a safer path. Around the year 731 CE, he found a weaker enemy in the south, an easier target that he could defeat. By winning this battle, he could show his power, gain respect, and strengthen his position, without risking a dangerous war with the Umayyads. Key takeaways. 1. Umayyad threat from 708 CE, a powerful foreign empire began attacking India, causing fear and chaos in western and central regions. 2. Fear in the land. The people and rulers of India were afraid and uncertain about what would happen next. 3. Vikramaditya and Lokamahadevi's dilemma. They wanted to appear strong like earlier Chalukya kings, but weren't sure if they could face the Umayyads. 4. Clever political move. Instead of facing a strong enemy in the north, Vikramaditya chose to attack a weaker southern kingdom around 731 CE. 5. Why it mattered. Winning a war, even a small one, would show others that he was a capable and strong ruler and help secure his power at home and among allies. Would you like this turned into a short Q&A, a timeline, or even a visual mind map to make it even easier to remember? Here's a great detailed summary passage you shared in the simplest and clearest. Main summary. Over the 30 years before this time, the Pallava kingdom had been recovering from serious damage caused by Chalukya king Vikramaditya III, who had attacked them during these attacks had weakened the Pallavas a lot, but by this time they had slowly rebuilt their strength and stability. A new Pallava king named Narasimha Varman II was now ruling. He was not just a warrior or political leader, he was also a lover of art and culture. His great-grandfather, King Mahendravarman, who was known for writing humorous plays, including one called Farce of the Drunkard's Games. A big influence on Narasimha Varman II's artistic side was likely his court poet and teacher named Dandin. Dandin was a very respected writer and scholar, and his name means stick wielder, which could be symbolic of learning or discipline. Dandin helped guide the king and might have encouraged his love for literature, arts and creativity. Extra details to help you understand better. Pallavas were a South Indian dynasty known for temple building, art and learning. Chalukyas were their rivals and had caused a lot of trouble for them in earlier decades. Vikramaditya was a powerful Chalukya king who had attacked and hurt the Pallava kingdom badly. Mahendravarman, the great-grandfather of Narasimha Varman II, was a very cultured king who even wrote plays, which was rare for kings. The farce of the Drunkard's Games was a common that Pallava kings also enjoyed humour and art, not just war. Dandin, the king's court poet, was a famous author and thinker, and he likely inspired the king to arts and learning more deeply. Would you like a timeline or visual map of these events next, or a memory trick to remember the kings and poets?